The fiery furnace. These three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down bound into the middle of the burning fiery furnace. Daniel 3:23, Western English Bible. When people host a gala dinner in contemporary society, or a banquet, all the guests are interested in the dinner, and the most important thing on the dinner table is the menu. All the conversations are always focused around that dinner. The guests might talk about politics, about the social order, about finance, about this and that, but the concealed goal is the menu, how the food will be cooked, what kind of effect it will have on the bellies of those who are present. However, these menus range in their quality. Sometimes the dinner is nice. Everything is cooked well. There's enough for everyone to eat. But other times, the food doesn't turn out well. In the aforementioned chapter, we are visually presented with an historical narrative, presented in a figurative and not in a literal sense. The three men had convictions that were more of a religious nature than a spiritual one. Hence, their convictions didn't match the convictions, beliefs, and the order of the time. Because of this, these men were thrown into the fiery furnace as punishment. You will say that this occurred in those barbaric times. No, it happens even today. The world hasn't changed much. Today, if someone breaks the fundamental law of the state, he might find himself in the police station, in some basement down below. He might find himself in that hot, fiery furnace. This is not only what happens to those who have deviated from others in a political sense, but if one of you is a believer and his beliefs don't match those of his fellow believers in society, he will be thrown into that furnace. Anyone can throw you into the furnace. A husband can throw his wife and children into the furnace. A wife can throw her husband into the furnace. Everyone gets roasted. I interpret this act of throwing into the furnace in a very broad sense. If you have strong convictions, you might be able to get out of the furnace. But if you don't have them, you'll remain there. Some beautiful young woman can be thrown in by a young man, or a young man can be thrown in by some young woman. Everywhere I look, I see people who are thrown in. This is a law regarding trials, or as we call it, evolution, passing from one phase into another. I pose a philosophical question. Couldn't the modern system, or all the systems of past and future ages, be arranged differently? Perhaps, or perhaps not. One is as true as the other. Half of it depends on us. Half of it depends on reasons outside of us. In other words, everything in nature is not determined by nature itself, and everything in nature is not determined by us alone. That is, we are not the only factor in resolving this vast issue. I will pose another philosophical question. Why did nature have to set us on two legs? These two legs are so impractical. They say that in this way man was built very well. No, man's present build is not so good. Whenever it loses its equilibrium, you see that this machine loses either a wheel or a spoke. I see a man walking, strutting, waving his arms, and I say to myself, hold on, your car isn't ready yet. It's not built very well. All modern people live in a hypnotic dream. They have beliefs, but they don't know what those beliefs are. They talk about a future life, but they haven't been there. They talk about God, but they never saw him. They talk about love, but it's not there. They talk about food, but they never tasted this life. These are people who live as they do in the fairy tales from 1001 Nights. The people often say, "I'm unhappy." It would be ridiculous if you weren't unhappy. If, after you fall asleep and dream of royal palaces, manservants and maidservants, but when you wake up you see there's nothing. Of course, you were asleep. All the people are like this. Every person who wakes up from this dream is coming to an awakening of his consciousness. That is, an awakening in the life of evolution. And everyone who wakes up becomes unhappy. A woman who awakens becomes unhappy. A man who awakens becomes unhappy. Children, upon awakening, become unhappy. Everyone, upon awakening, becomes unhappy. Seeing that things aren't as they thought. What should one do? How should one proceed? You should temporarily free yourselves from your personal life and reason together with me. Now, there is a thought in your mind that you still have 100 policies to pay off, that you have to pay 100,000 leva. These leva are not alive. That is, they are not living leva, phonetic, Bulgarian for lions. They're dead. If they were lions who were alive, I understand. But you're afraid of dead lions. Your pants are trembling. I say these lions are on paper. Consequently, this furnace mentioned in the verse is the current furnace in which the people find themselves. Life itself is a furnace. That is, the individual finds himself in a fiery furnace. Sometimes this furnace is red hot, like when they bake bread, and other times, not as much, like in some furnaces, and it feels pleasant to you. This is the furnace. There are other beings who, when you put them in the heat you live in, they would die immediately. There are also beings who live at a higher temperature than the one in which you live, and if you were to enter with them, you would die. Now, in order for you to understand me, free yourselves from your 100,000 leva on paper. Imagine you are children, that you don't owe anything to anyone, that you're free birds. You will say, "You want to fool us." No, I want to free you from your delusions. You will say, "I'm married." Yes, married in your dreams. Tomorrow when you die, will you be married? Tomorrow when you die, will you still have to pay that money, those policies? I ask, one day when everyone dies, who will owe anything to anyone? What kind of morality is this? Where is the morality? Who do we owe? Who is the creditor? You will say, "This is what is written in the law. This is what the Lord wrote." I say, where is the Lord's signature, saying this has to be so? We shouldn't falsify God's name, saying the Lord said so. The truth is that the Lord never said anything like this. Contemporary people speak the least amount of truth. When you have something to take, you speak the truth. But when you have to give, you don't speak the truth. There are two kinds of people in the world who speak the truth. Some speak the truth for their own interest, to prove that they have something to take. And others, also in their own interest, to prove that they have nothing to give. Both kinds speak the truth itself. But if you say the truth is absolute, then absolute truth has nothing to do with taking and giving. The truth is a condition of the human soul, which finds itself in absolute peace, which finds itself in harmony with the source of life. The truth only determines the relations of man to the eternal. When we bring down the truth from her exalted position down to the social life and say that this can be considered truth, that can be considered truth, then this kind of truth is only ours. I say this istina, phonetic, Bulgarian for truth, leads to istina, phonetic, Bulgarian for turning cold. You know what this means. Someone turned cold. Our truth turned cold. Whoever has a truth like this, he gets cold and catches a fever. Someone says, speaking the truth is not worth it. I say, yes, turning cold is not worth it. Our truth is not truth. You changed the syllable. One notices that these three young men had character. Why did the author of this drama use three people and not one? Well, this is the writer's secret. Some author writes a drama in which the hero must die, but the heroine must live, and so must be thrown into prison, and some other person must be freed. Everything on the stage happens exactly as the author wants. Now the first father of mankind wrote the drama as it is performed today. His children are acting out their father's drama. If you ask me, why does everything happen like this? I say, your father wrote it that way, and we can't change what he wrote. Someone will say, God wrote this. God didn't write this drama. He doesn't deal with such foolishness. There are wiser things for him to do. Which father of yours wrote this drama? Do not think that your father was very noble. I will prove to you that even your mother wasn't so honest. The Lord, having great faith in them, put them in paradise. But your mother tempted the laws, which is why the Lord kicked them out of paradise. When your father got out of paradise, he wrote this drama and said, let the future generation know what kind of person I was, what their mother was like, so they can know that we were heroes, that we were able to stand in opposition to God. Throughout the entire life of these three young men, their mind, heart, and will took part, their spirit, soul, and body. When we come to the first translation, that man has a mind, a heart, and a will, everyone accepts it. When we reach the second translation, that man has a spirit, a soul, and a body, people only accept the part about the body, and they throw away the other two elements. The only cult of mankind which the people dwell on is the mind, whereas the spirit and soul remain in heaven. They say, there is no spirit or soul on our land. The people are right when they say there is no spirit or soul. Now you will reach the realm of your personal life again, and you'll ask, how is that so? Don't we have a spirit and a soul? I don't deal with personal questions. See what your father wrote in the book, how these things ought to be presented. Have you seen your spirit? Have you seen your soul? We can't talk about things we haven't seen. The word vedi means that we must talk about the things we have seen. Videli, phonetic Bulgarian for to see. The concepts in your mind mustn't be jumbled, but they must represent a consistent, vast, and irrefutable truth. In my view, every person who seeks happiness outside himself is Don Quixote, and so we modern people resemble Don Quixote. Sometimes the husband is Don Quixote, and the wife is Sancho Panza, and sometimes the wife is Don Quixote, and the husband is Sancho Panza. You shouldn't be offended by this, because I don't consider you as individuals, but I take you as people of ideas. I examine the life on stage, not as life is in reality. I examine your father's drama, so you shouldn't be offended and think that the life on stage is your life. No, let's come to an understanding. You must think correctly. You need to understand life correctly. You should all strive for this correct understanding. Now, I don't want us to criticize things relentlessly, but I am saying that some things can sometimes be true and sometimes false. I will relate a story to you. In ancient times, in a certain kingdom, there appeared a handsome young man, so handsome that he was the only one who possessed such beauty in the whole country. Everyone talked about him. Poets and poetesses began writing about him. Courtiers and statesmen surrounded him. This went on for 10 years. But one day, people started saying that his life was not so pure, that he had some secret things in his life. Who started gossiping about him? The women. The men stayed out of it. And the women said that his honesty was doubtful, that so-and-so was unhappy with him. They brought him to trial, and 40 young women appeared who suffered because of him. The king decided to behead him. Before they could carry out the sentence, he said, "Don't be in a hurry to cut off my head, but you should strip me naked." What turned out? This young man was a woman. I ask then, how would he disgrace these young women? How would he do them harm? Consequently, the accusation falls flat. Now, in your drama, you have all taken him to trial, saying that you suffered at his hands. All you have to do is strip him naked to see that he has done you no harm. When it comes to these 3 young men, one notices that they have a character to endure a trial. The trial may sometimes be of a political nature, sometimes of a societal nature, sometimes of a religious nature, sometimes of a scientific nature, and sometimes also of a familial nature. But no matter what happens, the trial must be endured. These young men said to the king, "We cannot bow down to your gods and to your image. It is your will. You may burn us. It doesn't matter to us. We will remain firm in our convictions." What do you think? Were these men, the 3 youths, the same men or women? They pass as men, don't they? I don't want to delve deeper and keep on developing this drama. I can prove to you factually that all the abuses, all the sins people are talking about now, are a great illusion in their minds. This is the law. No being outside of you, be it a person or anything else, is in a position to corrupt you. The only one who can corrupt you is yourself. When you corrupt yourselves, then everyone else from outside can also corrupt you. Someone says, "They tempted me." No, you tempted yourself. The display of fearlessness is noticeable in the character of the 3 young men. When can the human character display fearlessness? Only when the human and human heart are filled with love. But what kind of love? Not the kind made from potatoes, of course. Only he who has seen the face of God, only he who has seen the light that radiates from his face, only he understands this great truth and no one else. Do not speak of this great truth until you try it. Seek it, knock for it, desire it. Do not play a role like those who are on stage by thinking that you're kings, that you have found the great truth. You haven't found it. Whoever finds that great truth will be like those young men who threw their knotted ropes into the furnace. They immediately untied them and left. Consequently, if you found that great truth when your ropes will fall into the fire, but if they don't fall, you haven't found it. If your spirit remains strong, not burned in the fire, you found the truth. Or are you going to talk to me like that treasurer in the region of Provadia? One summer day, I took the coat in my hand and strolled along the fields. A person from the field saw me and said, "Wait, sir, where are you going?" "I'm going to look at nature." "No, you seem like a treasurer to me. I'm also one of them." He started telling me, "I'm on my way to discover a great treasure. I found 9 signs. I have one more sign left to find, the last one. Can you help me find it? This last sign is the most difficult to find. I say, actually, friend, you're looking for your own treasure, but I found mine a long time ago. So if you want, you can come with me. Did you really find it? Yes. Well then, you're not like me, a deviate, phonetic. Deviate, a Bulgarian for dunce. I should explain to you what the word deviate means. Deviate, or divan, means a person who stands straight, upright, and thinks about many things. The treasurer said, "There are still many things to think about until I find that last sign. The last sign is necessary for your evolution. It's necessary for your soul and for your mind. Only in this way will you be able to solve that great social issue which is now being posed individually to all awakened people, whether to go back to sleep again or begin life anew. Which life is more pleasant? The life of sleep or the life of awakening? The life of drunkenness or the sober life? Nowadays, the drunkards constantly lift the full glass. Let's drink for the well-being of Bulgaria. Our people are winning. Let's go. Cheers. Give me 1 more kilo. Then they return and say, well, how did this happen? Well, this is what happens when people drink. They always lose. In any society, in any nation, only those people who work on the field, only the people who burn in the fiery furnace are people who belong to what is actual, what is real. They are the people who raise mankind. When you have calluses on your mind, on your heart, and on your will, these are signs that you have been working. But according to the current order of things, our bodies ought to be clean on the outside, white, not to have any calluses, and our hands also have to be healthy, without calluses, just as the Roman patricians were at one time, who constantly rubbed their hands so they wouldn't crack. It's the same now. They beautify the fingers with rings. They cover the faces with veils so they don't turn dark, so they can be beautiful. I don't deny this kind of beauty, but it must be internal, a beauty of the human character, of the soul, so it can endure a trial like this. The angels from above are spectators, watching whether you will have the courage to endure this fire, or whether you are going to get undressed. This furnace was made on purpose so it could test you. I ask you, if a king comes to your country and issues such a law, for all the women to leave their husbands and marry someone else, and every woman who doesn't leave her husband will burn in the furnace, how many of you women will stay with your husbands? You will say, hey, that's just what we were looking for. If another king were to come and issue a different order, for all the men to leave their wives, and those who don't leave them will go straight into the fire, how many men will remain with their wives? The men will say, but that's just what we're looking for. Then the women will host a royal dinner. They'll say, may the Lord give life to the king, for he saved us from our husbands. And the men will host a royal dinner and say, may the Lord give life to the king, for he saved us from the women. But life cannot be set in order by such a law. Life has a profound inner meaning. The question is, where will you be after 100 years? And what condition will you be in? It's important, after 100 years, whether you'll be a leaf or a flower on this tree, or whether you will have fallen down where they trample you. Now the religious people who preach the teaching put half the people in hell and the other half in heaven. And indeed, life really is like this. Half of the people are in hell, and half are in heaven. Those who eat and drink are in heaven, and those who go hungry are in hell. This is the de facto truth. But God did not create such a hell. There is a hell in the world that people created themselves. This is the hell where souls live who have not endured their trial. Hell is our evil, hidden thoughts, which seek conditions so they can manifest. This last sentence was filled in additionally by the stenographer. These three young men held a high social position, but for their convictions they had to be tested. The king said to them, "If you do not worship this golden image, I will deprive you of the position you occupy and place you in a hot furnace from which no one can deliver you." Now we are also in the same period as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. This period is repeating now. All the people are going to be thrown into that furnace. If you don't bow down to certain opinions, systems, beliefs, you'll go into the fiery furnace. There is no freedom today. There only appears to be freedom. All the people mistreat each other nowadays. And how do they do it? In a lawful manner. The people put up legality as a pretext for justice. But this legality is a legality of violence. Towards whom? Towards the noble people in the world. Let us return to examine life on a personal, individual, and inner level. We are, in fact, on earth. If your life today causes you sufferings for thousands of lives, I ask you, do you have a reason to live? If, however, your current renunciation creates happiness for you for thousands of years, isn't renouncing yourself worth it? In what and in whom does man's happiness lie? It lies in man himself. That nice disposition you have in your soul is where your true happiness lies. What is real is that which we have for a given moment in our consciousness. That's where true happiness is. That moment can either be cut off, or it can also exist for thousands of years. When it is cut off, it can also appear again. We can always have happiness. When one wants to solve a certain issue, he has to say to himself, "Let me see what is written inside within my soul. Let me see what I think about this issue." In order to solve something, the person must do away with every one of his weaknesses, with every insult, and he must think as if he's coming on earth for the very first time, that no one gave him anything, that no one did anything for him, neither good nor bad. Only in this way can we solve the social issue. And now we meet someone who either sneers or frowns at us. I ask, why does he sneer? Why does he frown? Two young men pass by. They meet an acquaintance, a lady. They greet her. She sneers at them. They leave. I meet two other young men. An acquainted lady passes by them. They don't greet her. She frowns. I read the whole story. I say both ladies are asleep right now. They're dreaming. One of them is satisfied. The other one is unsatisfied. When one of them frowns, she shows her contempt for them because they didn't greet her. I relate her words. This is what she says. "Those dunces, those fools, they have nothing in those little brains of theirs, and now they're acting arrogant around me." This is the internal conversation she has during her indignation. But the other young lady, the one who sneered, says, "These are excellent, noble young men. They're well educated. They come from a noble family. There's no one in Sofia like them." I say, in my view, the young men who greet and those who don't greet are under the same denominator. And both ladies are very noble, because one of them has the courage to express her indignation, whereas the other one relates her satisfaction. But the delusion lies in the fact that these young women expect the two young men to make them happy. Do not expect your happiness from anywhere. Whoever is awake must expect his happiness from within. If you're healthy, if you have a beautiful mind, a strong will, a pure heart, then you're happy. As long as your mind, your heart, and your will are within your control, you are happy. But if your mind, your heart, and your will are out of your control, everyone will push you around. You'll be unhappy. Why? Who pushes who? Everyone pushes the impoverished man around, but they take their hats off to the wealthy one. Why? They say to the impoverished one, "You're just like me, but the wealthy man has something we can take from him." Now, what is desired of you is courage, like the kind that the three young men displayed. You need to enter the fiery furnace. Courage in what? Courage in the mind and thoughts. Courage in the heart and feelings. Courage in the will and actions, but not courage in committing crimes. Correct thoughts, correct feelings, and correct actions are required of you. Those of you who are listening to me should make a little experiment in order to recognize the degree to which you are enlightened. Try to remove the disharmony that exists in your mind. Reduce the disharmony that exists in your homes by 50%. Reduce those obstacles that you have in society by 50%. Strive to do this. Exert your will without telling anyone about this. Here is a condition in which you can find the truth. The truth is based on purely mathematical principles. I will read several numbers to you which have mathematical ratios: 35, 57.9, 36.5, 29.5, 37, 32.5, 13, 19.4, 16, 15.4, 14.5, 80. These are living numbers. This is man. Here are some more numbers: 163, 47, 71, 36, 17, 16, 10, 9, 6, 9, 8. Well, what did you understand? The way I read those numbers off to you, it would be called jumble jamble poof. Now, let me clarify what these numbers mean. The number 35 shows that this man circled around the sun 35 times. You will say, "He circled around the sun. Can we believe this?" I can prove it to you. When the earth circles around the sun once, you also circle around with it. So that means the man circled around the sun 35 times. When a person circles around the sun 35 times, his head circles around its center 57 times. Find the ratio and the speed between these two numbers, 35 and 57. Which one moves faster? I would translate all these numbers according to this ratio, and every single organ we have in our head will show a certain movement. Using the form of the ears and the eyebrows, one can calculate mathematically how many millions of years ago they began their creation until the whole body forms. Consequently, one can calculate what the energy is that is being used in this movement, and so on. These are abstract truths. One day, when you reach a state where you can understand them, only then will you reach that inner understanding of how to organize your lives. What happens now? The wife expects something from her husband for him to work, so that hopefully one day he can leave her a little pension. Well, what will happen if this country goes bankrupt tomorrow? What if her husband is unable to secure a pension for her? All this can change. Nothing is absolute in the world. Then what can our life be based on? There is a divine law in the world which can regulate the relations of things. This law is so great that one cannot find any exceptions in it. The life of all the nations, of all the tribes, moves according to a determined mathematical law. I now see that all the nations will one day reach the goal that this law has determined for them. And you, along with all your misunderstandings, will arrive at this goal. When you come to this goal, all of you will be awakened, and you won't have the bodies you currently have. You will not walk the way you do now on 2 feet. Neither will you do so like the animals on all fours, nor will you fly like the birds. You won't move like people. You won't walk like the animals, and you won't fly like birds. What will you be then? Tell me, how does the light move? On 2, on 4 feet, or with wings? Yet all the living beings that traverse throughout all of space come from the light. Every beam that emanates from the light is a living being, which stretches from the sun until its final point that it will reach. When it reaches its final point, it begins to shrink, and then a second beam comes out. We see that the beams of light are living beings. You will say, "How is this so? Can this be true?" Yes, but do you see what life is? The only thing that nobody argues about is life itself. The philosophers argue over all kinds of questions. But when it comes to life, almost all of them grasp it the same. Life implies all those favorable conditions that can be given for the expression of our mind, of our heart, and our will. Consequently, we must create a living faith within ourselves in relation to reality itself. We shouldn't think that what is real is something abstract. God is the greatest reality. He is invisible because we made him invisible. Why? Because we move in the opposite direction. This is why contemporary philosophers say, "No one has ever seen God." And they're right, because man cannot see God without light. He is the true light. There's nothing for us to see. The visible cannot be seen. The light itself cannot be seen. That which reveals the light cannot be seen. The measure itself with which you measure reality cannot be measured. The singular unit with which you want to measure all other singular units is unmeasurable. God is invisible, meaning he's a singular unit with which you can measure all other things. If you decide to measure him, you will lose your relations to all other things. Your confirmed idea that God is invisible with the following thought: "We are sinners, which is why we cannot see him." This is not the reason why you can't see him. But God is real on his own. He cannot be measured. You say, "Well, now when I love, is this real?" You love someone. You love another person. You ask whether this is love. Well, what is love then? Why don't you tell me? When it comes to love, there is a slight increase in the temperature. Measure a young woman's neck when she doesn't love, and then measure her neck when she loves. She will certainly have an increase in her neck size by at least 1 millimeter. Similarly, her hands will have increased by at least 1 millimeter. When it comes to love, there is always an increase. And so, we refer to that increase as love. If there is no increase in the organism, there is no love at all. You say, "So-and-so is a religious person." Measure his neck and hands. And if there is at least a 1 millimeter increase, then he's a religious person. There's religion in him. He's a political figure. Measure his neck and hands. See if there's an increase. This can be measured. It can be calculated mathematically. But now they say that so-and-so is a public servant, that he did so many good deeds for Bulgaria. Ha ha, he did good deeds, huh? He brought in 5, but he took away 100. These kind of people are always taken to be virtuous. One day, so-and-so did so many things. No, in our heart, there must always be a radical change. There must be a rational number. You always contradict yourselves. You say, I decided to live a pure, pious life to serve God. The next day, you have obstacles. They throw you in the furnace. You procrastinate and say, today is not the day for this. Yes, you are one of those people who rush. Those who rush to be born eventually die. But even those who don't rush die. Only those who are born on time do not die. Consequently, there must be a radical change in our heart. Our love mustn't fluctuate like the wind, but there must be something lasting in it, something changeless. They threw the three young men into the fiery furnace, but they saw a fourth face inside. The king said, weren't they only three? Yes, the fourth face is the millimeter with which they grew. Why not take them out to see what's inside? There's something real over there. Where's your reality? When I speak, you oftentimes take my words and twist them, but this also doesn't mean anything. I know the opposite law. When my truth transforms into a negative quantity, then I take one more quantity with a minus, so that out of these two negative quantities, one positive quantity is obtained. Consequently, when a person offends you, he transforms your quantity from a positive into a negative. Then transform this truth. Put down another quantity with a minus. Say, I deserve this. Put these two minuses together and you'll get a plus. Why would anyone deserve this? You'll say to yourself, now I'll find the great truth with which the people will no longer reproach me. When do they reproach a woman? When she doesn't have a husband. When she has a husband, no one will reproach her. When you don't have truth, everyone reproaches you. But when you have truth, no one reproaches you. Consequently, when the Lord comes to live in us, no one will be able to reproach us. This is why we have to come closer and find this God of ours. You say, I tried this God. He helped me. Are you certain that this God helped you? Tomorrow, you might waver in your belief. Some of you believe more in me than in the Lord. You say, this is what Mr. Deunov says. Tomorrow the people will say, he lies. Yes, this is also what we thought. This is how it was with Christ. They greeted him with palm branches, saying, Hosanna in the highest heaven. 3 days later, they said, crucify him down on the cross. These are not convictions. These are not religious trends. As long as all the public figures and all religious people think as they do today, all you'll ever do is play on the stage. There will be disgrace. This is what your father wrote. And so, what is characteristic of these three young men is their courage to enter the hot furnace. Consequently, you are also now facing the same trial. Enter the furnace. Purify yourselves, so the fourth person can come. Who is the fourth one? He is that 1 millimeter with which you have grown. No, without any fear, without any movement from the outside whatsoever, but all you need is a single movement within your souls. When you see a beautiful woman, you smirk, but when you see an ugly one, you're dissatisfied. The woman is the soul. She's not the external form that you see. You say about someone, look how ugly you became. But I change my face every day. Sometimes you say about me, what a bad man he is. I am neither good nor bad. Sometimes when you greet me, I smirk, but when you don't greet me, I frown. These are momentary changes that take place in the human character. Do not judge the human character by some fleeting changes. You can only come to know a person when his soul awakens, when he begins to think of the Lord. So when the person finds him, he can solve great tasks in society, so he can help both himself and those around him. I ask you, having listened to me for so many years, what did you learn? You learned a lot, but like that treasurer, you found 9 signs, but haven't found the last one. You will say, we should read something by so-and-so. Yes, but information leading to that sign isn't written anywhere. Not even in the Bible. Nowhere. Where will you find it then? You'll come into my room. I found it. I'll tell you where you can also find it. To whom will I tell this? Only to the one who has given up everything in the world. Stop thinking of any kind of thing that offends you. Think as if you're coming to earth for the first time, and that you have the best disposition towards all the people. This is what I will say to such a person. The master writes some formula in the air with his finger, some signs. I gave you the secret. Do you know what this resembles? I will relate an anecdote to you about talking with the hands, with fingers. A great philosopher lived in India, who finally found a simple man with whom he could converse. The philosopher showed one of his fingers. The simple man showed 2 of his fingers. The philosopher showed 5 of his fingers turned upside down. The simple man showed his 5 fingers, but in the opposite direction. They asked the philosopher, what did you understand from the conversation? The philosopher answered, I told him that there is only one king in the world. But the simple man replied that there are 2, God and the king in the world. I told him that an abundance of rain will come about, which will give blessings, and he replied to me that all the grasses and plants will sprout because of it. Then they asked the simple man what he understood by the conversation. He said, the philosopher said to me that he will gouge one of my eyes, but I replied that I will gouge both of his. He said that he will attack me with 5 men, but I replied that I will come against him with twice as many. The language of presumed and hypothetical numbers is dangerous. You will only be able to understand this sign one way, namely when you free yourselves from every kind of private property, from every form of hatred, from all vices, and you must think that you're coming on earth for the first time. And so, what is actual, what is real, is that exalted love, which has nothing in common with your current feelings and dispositions. This exalted real love is known by the following. When it comes into contact with a stupid person, he becomes wiser, a sage. When it comes into contact with a dead man, he resurrects and lives. When it comes into contact with a leper, the leprosy immediately leaves him. When it comes into contact with someone whose heart is wounded and discouraged, it is immediately reborn. It does wonders. It is great and powerful, and whatever it touches, it creates. The science of that great love deserves to be studied. All the knowledge of modern-day science from the last 8,000 years until now, taken together cumulatively, and their result and their effect is not worth even as much as a single wave of this great love. Consequently, there's something for us to learn, and I tell you that from now on you have much to learn. You have already awakened. Be courageous and do not give in to any doubts, regardless of what nature they are. Whatever others tell you, be faithful to your hearts, minds, and will. Be faithful to your spirit and soul. This is the first principle. If you are faithful to yourselves, you'll be faithful to everyone. If you're not faithful to yourselves, you can't be faithful to anybody. Someone says, you have to be faithful to me. I apply this rule differently. Regarding the question, will you be faithful to me? I say, are you faithful to your heart, mind, and will? Are you faithful to your spirit and soul? Yes, then give me your hand. You'll be faithful to me too. But if that person says, ah, 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 this is also how I will answer. This is no philosophy. If you say, if therefore, and so on, this doesn't exist with us. Some gentleman writes a letter to a lady. He writes several lines and adds an ellipsis of 3 dots. He continues, writing several more lines, and once again, another ellipsis. These ellipses are irrational quantities. This gentleman deals with many unknown quantities. I say, friend, you have to flip these numbers around. We must restore these relations between ourselves. Yes, I understand, he says. The woman writes a letter. She writes 2 lines of text, followed by an ellipsis. 2 lines of text again, an ellipsis. I translate, you are indeed a very learned man, but you're an ordinary office worker with a small salary. And then an ellipsis. The ellipsis means the following. I'm a lady of high social status. You are unable to maintain my standards. He stops and wonders what she's trying to say with the ellipsis. I say it's a very simple matter. The dots in the ellipsis are money, gold coins, but not Bulgarian money, but rather English pounds or American dollars. They say, what an excellent, loving relationship. These two really love each other. No, look at their letters. You'll see how many ellipses there are. All those who are wed together with ellipses also end up finishing with ellipses. You will marry in a way in which no ellipses end up in your letters. You must throw out the words if, along with so on and so forth. Your speech must be very well defined. You will say thus, I will be as faithful to you as I am faithful to my own mind, heart, and will, just as I am faithful to my spirit and soul. Give me your hand. This is character. Even if our God doesn't save us, we are ready to sacrifice everything for him. These 3 young men understood the truth, and that's why this 4th one went among them, in order to see what was going on. These young men were chaste and innocent souls, 3 exalted angels made incarnate, but neither as men nor women, and they came on earth temporarily. And so, did your 4th angel come to you? That is the question. You say, let's wait and see what else he has to say. I told you one of the great truths in the world, but you say, wait. There's no more waiting. If a person goes out on a journey, does he say to the train, wait? When the teacher teaches a lesson, the students must have their notebooks prepared, and they shouldn't tell the teacher, wait, teacher, so we can take out our notebooks. You have to be in your place 5 minutes earlier. The sun won't wait for us. Now, get rid of everything that is hindering you, because I see so many crooked, distorted beliefs in your minds and hearts that I've been wondering how, by what means, and what hose to use so I can clean them out of your minds. The fact that you'll be cleansed, that you'll pass through the fire, that your bonds will fall off. I have no doubt about that. I know that. But why do you need more unnecessary suffering? Set yourself the task of solving the question, would you be able to withstand the test of the 3 young men? Don't be in a hurry to say, but I love you. And don't tell this to yourself either. Love doesn't hurry. It doesn't speak. It says and acts. When someone says, I love you, I ask him, are you ready to give everything? Then there's no need. You either give everything or nothing. Whoever seeks love must be willing to give everything, absolutely everything. And so you will enter into harmony with the whole of existence. You must strike with a knife and free yourselves from all your old beliefs and say, everything must now begin anew. Do not say that you are disgusted by your past, but you'll return to it and give thanks to all those sufferings that befell you. You need to kiss the hand of the person who stabs you with a knife. You must kiss the hand of the person who took your money. The person who stabbed you with a knife and let you bleed out did this to you so you wouldn't commit a great crime. The person who robbed you freed you from debauchery. I will end my lecture with a story. In ancient times, there was a wealthy merchant who had 2 small children, a boy and a girl, whom he left under the care of one of his servants, whom he trusted completely. With this complete trust in the servant, he died. However, after the death of his master, the servant thought to deprive the heirs of their wealth, so he sold both the sister and the brother as slaves. After these children wandered for a long time, and after many sufferings, fortune smiled upon them. The sister grew up and became a very young, beautiful woman, and the royal son of a neighboring kingdom married her, and she became a queen. After wandering for a long time, the brother managed to take a very high position in the kingdom. The king of this country fought with the neighboring kingdom, where the former servant lived and ruled over it. The merchant's son decided to ask for an account from his benefactor, the servant, and he took it upon himself to find him in the kingdom. He began to look for him and found him, as he lived richly. He was married and had 5 daughters and 5 sons. The sister, having learned from her brother about the situation of her former servant, the benefactor, she told the whole story to her husband and decided to punish him in a clever way. They began applying the rule. The war had just come to an end. This merchant lost 1 daughter, then 1 son, then the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, the 5th daughter, and in the same way he lost the other 4 sons. They were dragged far away from the kingdom. Then his possessions began catching fire, his fields, houses, then his cattle died, until one day he was left completely alone, impoverished, and he said to himself, "Why did the Lord give me so many punishments?" Finally, the thought came to him, "Yes, these things befell me because I committed a great crime. I sold my master's children." You will say, "This is just a tale." Yes, but this happens every day in life. I ask you now, don't you think you sold your master's son and daughter? Where is your spirit? Where is your soul? Didn't you sell them? This is what is said. What use would I have if I gain the whole world but lose my soul? The sufferings constantly reform man. The higher consciousness awakens in him until finally they reveal themselves to him and he decides to live a life of purity. Everything that is happening right now is due to our children who have gone up to heaven and send us sufferings. Tell me, do you know a servant, a man, a woman, a master who wasn't unfaithful to God? And not only in one instance, but from the time he was born on earth. At any time in the world, was he ever faithful to his God? Consequently, I advise all of you to put sackcloth and ashes on your heads and to live a pure spiritual life. You say, "We Bulgarians are from a noble lineage. We are being insulted by the Serbs and Greeks." You are all criminals, all the nations with their preachers and priests, along with all the men and women, which is why you must all return to God and say, "Lord, we committed so many crimes against you." Sackcloth on all of you. Everyone must repent, and we shouldn't use one person as a scapegoat and slaughter him, and then slaughter someone else. Repentance, not just for one person, but for everyone. You must renounce all the gods and live with the new understanding of that great love. Yet look at what people do now. Come, all of you, so we can become orthodox, so we can have a new teaching, so we can stick a knife into the root of the old and say, it's either everything or nothing. Now you're looking at me and saying, wait for more favorable conditions. What will the conditions be? Tomorrow the worms will come and eat everything off you. But now when the Greeks refer to you as thick-headed, can't your head become thinner? When you listen to me, some of you become a little saddened. You frown and you say, enough with that. Well, haven't you gone far enough? If you have a single friend who tells you the truth, it's me. I'm showing you one way that you can follow. We need to forget everything from the past. We need to kiss the hands that caused us the greatest sufferings. We need to confess to everything we did, and then apply the virtues. They're the ones we need to live with. I ask you now, is there harmony among you? Where is it? It's not in the Orthodox Church. Neither is it in the evangelical one. Nor is it among the Buddhists. Nor is it in the new teaching. Some people come here, but they come with their old baggage. We don't accept such people. If the old enters in, it will want to be served. We want to live in the name of that great love. And when I tell you I love you, you must know that this is love. And when I tell you that I'll fulfill whatever I promised, you should know that I'll fulfill it exactly as I promised. You will say, there are no conditions for doing good. When it's about the connections between us, there will always be good conditions. Not that the Lord wants this. He is so calm. He looks upon you and says, my children are sleeping. They're having bad dreams. Sometimes the child sleeps and he says in his sleep, ah, ah. He's not sleeping well. What is it, my little one? Nothing. I had a very bad dream. What did you dream, my little one? They were chasing me. It's nothing. This is just a dream. The next day the mother says, last night my child was about to lose his mind. He had a bad dream. Ah, a bad dream. And now I also say the same to you. It's nothing, my little one. It's nothing. This is a dream. There's actually nothing. The Lord says, my children are sleeping and they see bad dreams. It is said in Scripture that in the last days they will prophesy. I would like you to prophesy and to have visions. This is how I want love to speak within you. Love has not yet come. Do not think that I want to discourage you, but I tell you that once and for all we must cross out the past. We shouldn't forget it, but we should say, in the name of love, I now begin the other part of my life. And no matter how bad we might have been in the past, we will be just as good in the other direction of our lives. In the name of that love, we will rise up and build. We will lend a hand to all. This living word must be carried throughout the entire world. This Lord of whom I have been preaching to you is a peculiar God. You have never heard his voice. You have never seen his face. He doesn't live in churches, nor in Jerusalem. For the first time, he is coming down from his dwelling place and heading towards you. And this is why I'm telling you to turn to him. Turn to God and not toward me. Otherwise, you're fooling yourselves. Do not believe in absolutely any man, in nobody at all. Here is the truth. Some say that others ought to believe in me. Do not believe in absolutely anybody. I'm not trying to offend you. Don't even believe yourselves, nor should you believe me. When I say this, it doesn't mean you shouldn't have faith in anything. But what should you believe in? Believe in that love which arranges everything in one instant. This is what is great. This is what is powerful. I would like it if everyone becomes an unbeliever. And then what? We'll do away with things. What will we believe in? In love. In that one singular unit that changes all other variables, which gives meaning to the new life, which comprises a new concept about God. Now throw out all the philosophers who have spoken about God and say, we want to see this God who is coming to earth for the first time. We want to see him in such a way that we can have a real conception of him, so there are no middlemen. Do you know who this refers to? It refers to those who are ready to give up their private property, who renounced their past. Not those who say, wait, let us think about it. And so, return to your homes and put Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, in your minds. The first letters of these names are Sa, Ma, and A. What French word would you come up with using these three letters? C'est moi, meaning it's me. In Bulgarian, I would form the word semena, seeds. Well, which God do you want to serve now? You will tell me, we believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, who came to earth 2,000 years ago and was crucified on a cross. We believe in his blood. Good, I'm glad. Where are the fruits of this Christ of yours, who was crucified because of you? He said, forgive them, Lord, because they do not know what they do. Do not consider this as a sin against them. Where are these European nations, these followers of Christ? Did they also say the same thing while on the cross? Did the believers say this? Did the priests say this? Yet now they gather at conferences, hoping to settle things. No, this world cannot improve with lies. One day I will hold a lecture before you in which I will prove to you mathematically why the world cannot improve with lies. I will prove to you what kind of quantity a lie is, and how this quantity formed. Return back within yourselves, over there, within your soul. There's a life in there which still remains untouched, of which you know nothing yet. Return within yourselves and begin this new life. Return back to your homes. Start working and don't say anything. This new life will produce a shocking effect on you. It won't drive you mad, but it will make you heroes. The power that will come into you will be in the condition to transform all the conditions in which you find yourselves. It will visibly transform your life. Once your world transforms, the whole world will transform. The Lord will say, since you changed, I too will change my actions in regard to you. Then peace will reign in the world. Return to your homes and find out where Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego reside within you. One of them lives in your mind. You will look for him in heaven. The other one lives in your heart. You will look for him in the astral world. The third one lives on earth, and the fourth one is the one who is coming now from above. Since your sufferings are so great, the Lord says, a great deal of noise is heard coming from the earth. Go and see what's going on there so we can put an end to these sufferings. You say to yourselves, is this person speaking the truth, or is he fooling us? You can apply this teaching through experience. I already told you so many ways you could experiment with it. But until now, nobody has tried anything yet. Nobody experimented to gain his own experience. You attempted many times, but you need to make the attempt in this serious experiment. Since I told you not to believe in anybody anymore, you shouldn't believe in yourselves either. Do not get discouraged. But you need to know that you shouldn't believe in yourself, in the person who you are today and what you are today. And you'll put your faith in that original state you were in. Not what you are today, but what you were like in your original state. That's important. And you'll say to yourselves, "This is us." Upon reaching that state, you will move forward. This love that is now coming into the world will make you happy. And then you will meet your beloved. Your hearts are burning now, aren't they? You say to yourselves, "My heart is beating." Yes, but your beloved is not there. Your beloved ones are about to start coming down on earth. At the moment, they're only a reflection of their true selves. So you get disappointed and say, "He also has weaknesses." Yes, because the truth is not there. You're not going to consider what I'm telling you as an insult, as a fault, are you? Will someone hold me responsible? Tell me. I don't like to be responsible for something. I want to pay for it right now. Of course, I don't want you to give your peculiar opinion, but I know that most of you consider me responsible. However, I will repay you, I tell you. This is the true path, but only for those who sincerely want to develop and live in these conditions. We can't suddenly get up and fly, but the future life requires a new understanding of things. Because nature also can't tolerate the old. It's not possible to live in the future as caterpillars, as silkworms. We can't live with the old habits. The others who come after you may be able to live according to your way, but this is impossible for you. Once you get in the furnace, your chains will fall. Now all of you are in the furnace. I would like it if everyone's chains fell, and for the fourth one to come, and for you to get out of the furnace and say, "There is no God like the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. There is no God like the one who makes order and harmony between all brothers, sisters, and friends. There is no power like love." Consequently, we have to accept it consciously, according to the law of faithlessness. When you renounce the devil, they ask you in the church, "Do you renounce the devil who is now commanding everything in the world?" He has taken hold of divine things and put his signature beneath. Say, "I renounce everything." And so, there is no God like the one of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I would like you all to return to your Lord. He is also my Lord. My Lord is yours too. He is one. From the time the world existed, for the first time, he sends a ray of light to the sons of man on earth. The prophet says, "Turn to me, accept my love, establish my law, bring brotherhood everywhere. May all violence cease. May no trace of falsehood remain. May my children wake up. May they not see terrible dreams. May heaven not be ashamed of their words." I wish that all of you, upon returning to your homes, renounce the past. So when you come next Sunday, at least 1/10 of you will have come out of the furnace. March ahead, comrades. March ahead. The battle is yours. Don't hesitate. Right now, you're standing and saying, "How will this task be solved?" March ahead, nothing more. The same is said in war. March ahead, and the outcome of the war is decided. The same is said regarding every task. March ahead, comrades. I say, march ahead, brothers. March ahead, Bulgarians. We will give the first battle according to all the rules. We will open fire with artillery according to all the rules. March ahead. May the brotherhood live. Amen. From now on, the only thing that will live in the world is brotherhood. It will rule over everything. Every person who cannot live like a brother or sister cannot be a citizen of the new kingdom in this world. Lecture held on the 17th of April, 1921.